I'm Chantel Colwill.
And I'm Cassandra Anderson.
And this is
Csquared.
This week, we have been joined by the esteemed Rory O'Shea.
Welcome, Rory. Thank you so much for being with us. So if you don't mind, can you please just explain to us how you got your start as a Canadian media personality?
Absolutely. Well, Chantel and Cassandra, thanks for having me as part of your show. I'm honored, and it'd have to go way back to the Jurassic era when I started out. I was 13, and I got a real taste for the stage when I had won a public speaking contest. And I did my speech when I was 13 on a day in the life of a $20 bill, and it was called I Was Born in a Mint. So I won in my school, and then I went to other schools and municipal finals and competitions, and then regional, and before you know it, I was on stage for the provincial finals, and I won a lot of first prize competitions to get to that stage, and it was quite something. It was an adrenaline rush. And so at one of the competitions, one of the adjudicators, famous actor in Canadian television film, Sid Brown, had said to my mom, "Look, you should really get him a talent agent." And my mom thought, okay, well, I'll look into it. And so I went to see a talent agent that coincidentally enough lived, and I'm not kidding, right around the corner from where we lived. She lived on Cleveland, and it was a house and a business, and we lived on Balliol. A lot of people call it Beloyal. And I did my speech for her, and she signed me on the spot. Just a little 5-minute speech, but I was very animated. And I guess she took to that, and it was a charming little speech. And from that, I went to get headshots and start in the world of, commercials and film and acting. Didn't have any acting experience, but I would have got the very first audition that I went out for had it not been for some errant teeth. I was 13 years old. I had a couple of the old bicuspids or vampire numbers coming in, and those had to be rectified if I were to get anything, especially dealing with food. And this product was, I can't remember what it was for. It was for Crunchy Bar, actually. And I would have got the spot, they told me. So I went and had some of that work done. And then sure enough, the next spot I auditioned for after I'd had my teeth fixed was for another food product, for Heinz ketchup. And I got the spot. Now, not only did I get it, but it was really cool because it was with the legendary Canadian comedian John Candy.
Oh, and that's so cool!
Yeah. It's nice way to start your TV commercial career. So I was a bingo caller at an outdoor fair that was set up at Upper Canada College, and John was the hot dog vendor. And I still remember, as clear as yesterday, as being, on this stand and talking to the people at, assembled for bingo, and under the 64, under the, and I take up a French fry and I say, "Hey, that's not Heinz." And John in the background gives a bottle of Heinz ketchup as the hot dog vendor to scurry on over to me. And of course, I pour it on and I take my 500th cold fry of the day during the shoot. And I look at it, and of course, the cheesy line that it is, but it's a natural considering what my job was. And I look at the camera and yell, "Bingo!" So anyway, that was my very first commercial. And John Candy, as lovable a guy as everybody has ever gone on to say he was. And that was the first of 10 TV commercials I would end up doing through my teen years.
Wow, that's awesome. That is such a cool, start. Definitely a very cool start.
Yeah.
Which one? Oh, sorry. I was going to ask, which one was your favorite? Which one was your ultimate favorite that you remembered doing?
Well, I would have to say, you know what? Honestly, that one, Cassandra, just because of doing it with, a Canadian icon, and he treated me so well. I mean, I'm just some 13-year-old kid. He hadn't at this stage gone on to big Hollywood stardom yet. He was still very much Second City Television, SCTV, and commercials. But everybody certainly in Toronto and Canada would have known John Candy at that point. So
yeah, he was hometown famous for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, and he was just a lovable, beautiful, funny, generous guy. So that would definitely have to be my first one. Was my favorite one because of that reason.
Makes sense.
And where did you go from there? How did you get started into broadcasting?
So I guess it was a natural progression to go from film and TV, what I was doing, and I'd always wanted to be a radio broadcaster. And my older brother was an integral part of sort of helping guide me in that direction. And then, I found myself saying, well, I think I want to go to Fanshawe or Ryerson. They were holding basically two of the biggest broadcasting curriculums in the country. And I thought, well, so I was in grade 13 and I thought, well, why am I in grade 13? Because I don't want to be a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor. I didn't want to pursue university. I knew I wanted to go to college, and that's what Ryerson, or MTU, which subsequently, of course, became a university, was a college back then, but you only needed grade 12. And I just wanted to fast track getting into doing a course so that I could get into radio. Well, as luck would have it, one thing leads to another. And I had done, bless you, and I had done a radio show on Q107. And they used to do something on Friday nights called My Radio Show, My Radio Hour. And it's where anybody could write in and say, yeah, I'd love to do an hour on Q107. And you'd have to list out your musical choices and a short little essay, a paragraph or two, on why you'd like to do it. So I did it, and I got a call from Jeff Chalmers, who was hosting the program at that time. And he said, yeah, well, why don't you come on in and let's chat? And I did. And he was also the assistant music director, and we were in his office, and we hit it off immediately, got along. He said, well, why don't we do it on, Friday on a certain date? And I said, yeah, fantastic. And I did. And Jeff and I ended up becoming best friends. I was years later best man at his wedding, but we were thick as thieves, and it was great. And so we started hanging out together. And he helped me put together my very first radio demo tape. And it was actually in the control room of Q107. And the funny thing is, it was done while the radio station had gone off the air because lightning had struck the CN tower, and it went down for a while.
Oh, wow.
And while it was down, he helped me put together a demo tape, because it only has to be, 2 to 3 minutes or whatever. And we put that together because I'm on the mic. So we're using all of these professional commercials and mixing the music, and everything it sounds like a pro demo tape. I, in turn, shopped that around, and I got 3 job offers. Now, mind you, remember, not a stitch of any broadcasting courses or schooling or instruction at this stage. And I got a job offer from a station in Barrie, a station in Niagara Falls, and a station in Oshawa. Well, the station in Niagara Falls and Barrie, they wanted me right away, and it was Christmas time. And it's like, well, I look back at it now and I think, wow, what a particular individual I was to be able to pick and choose and say, well, no, I can't make it for Christmas. But I ended up going with Oshawa, which was day 1 of January. So the new year started. Not an auspicious start, because I missed my very first shift. I got the calendar mixed up with the midnight shifts and what was the new day. So I didn't even show up for my first shift. So I could have almost torpedoed my very first job before I even arrived. But the program director was really cool about it. And I was back the next night on the air at 12 and learning as I went. I didn't know the board. I didn't know anything. So it was like baptism by fire. And I was on the air at CKAR in Oshawa in January of 1984. And that was the start of my radio career.
That's
Wow.
fantastic.
Nice.
Like that's the coolest story of how to get started in the industry. Couldn't get any cooler than that.
Yeah, I sort of stumbled my way in, and if you had ever heard me on the air, it was quite evident that I had. So, but it was fun. I had come a long way in the 20 years that I was in radio itself. So.
Okay, so what other types of media forms have you done?
Well, so I got into radio from '84, and basically that was a 20-year trajectory until 2003. But in tandem with doing radio, I got back into TV and film. So I was doing these little acting roles in film and continued to do commercials. But I had moved from Oshawa, my first radio station, to Calgary in 1985. They had started up this brand new top 40 hit station on the AM dial, AM 106, which was fantastic, exciting, lots of fun. I ended up being in Alberta for 8 years. I went from AM 106 to a hard rock FM station, Z99, where I was doing afternoon drive, and I really cut my teeth on doing the rock format there, which was fantastic, and then ended up coming back home to Q107 at the tail end of 92. And there's a station that, I remember it signing on when I was in high school, and I thought, well, this is, it was my dream come true. But that 8-year span that I was in Alberta, not exactly Hollywood North, so my TV auditions and anything in that regard were few and far between. But I did resume when I came back to Toronto. So there was TV, and I got into it full force when I joined ranks with Canada's Weather Network when they had moved their headquarters from Montreal to Toronto. And that happened in 1998. And I auditioned to be on camera for them. I got one of the several gigs that they were auditioning for to fill the entire basically the job requirements that they needed for their new station and outfit in Toronto. So I was part of that team for 5 years, and I was still doing auditions and commercials and film work. I've done several dozen TV roles just to keep me on my toes. Invariably, they would be for TV reporters, newscasters, sportscasters, TV weathermen, because they wanted people that had actually done those gigs or were pretty good at pulling off what an authentic one would be like. So a lot of my stuff was TV anchor and reporter. On my IMDb page, I go back and still sometimes if I poke my head in, I think, oh, I forgot all about that. Everything from a sportscaster in the Don Cherry story, the second one for portraying Brian Williams, to having a role in Suits on Netflix. Just a tiny little speaking part, but it's great. Like I'd had people that friends of mine from Australia, they reached out, were you in Suits? Then I get a kick out of hearing that the royal family or William and Kate are fans.
Meghan Markle. Did you meet her on set?
No, it's funny. I saw her. I didn't meet her, but what was really cool, because the episode I was in season 5, and she was there, but I was also in a scene with Charles Barkley, the NBA All-Star and great. And I didn't realize it. So when I read for the role, I didn't read the small print that said, oh, by the way, you're going to be in this scene with Charles Barkley. So I show up, and there's Charles Barkley, and he's like this, he's a sport titan, in size and stature and reputation and everything else. And he's looking down the hallway at me. He goes, hey, asshole, how are you? I'm doing one of these. So apparently, I portray that type of a character in my role, and he knew it was me coming in. So he took me aback, but I thought that was quite fun. And he was fantastic to work alongside, just having a lot of fun. And I asked the assistant director, because I was actually using her iPhone to take selfies with Charles Barkley in the scene in the episode of Suits. I said, do me a favor, after the show airs, can you just send it to me? Because it'd be really cool to have. And it didn't air for another couple of months, but sure enough, true to form, she did, and she sent it to me. So I've got some great pictures with Charles Barkley from that shoot.
Oh, that's so cool.
Nice of her. Yeah, that was so nice of her. That was great.
Oh, it was, yeah.
That's so cool. Okay. I have a quick little question because I was made aware of your family background and some of the really cool things that your mom had done, and that she even has a street in Toronto named after her.
Yeah, my mom was spectacular. She was something else. As a matter of fact, I am currently working on a documentary on her. And I had some time, didn't we all, during COVID and lockdown, to go through a trove of photographs. My mom was very prolific in the Irish community in Toronto, so much so that she was voted Irish Person of the Year. She was Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Day Parade and leading the procession on horseback at the age of 72. Yeah, she was a big deal. She was just lovely, though. You didn't have to be Irish, but it didn't hurt if you wanted to get on her good side. But she was just so loving and compassionate and beautiful and philanthropic. And she did a lot to really bring the Irish community together over the decades since she had arrived from Dublin in 1954. And as a result of all the contributions and what she was to the local community, it wasn't difficult for me to pitch the idea of having a laneway named after her. And after we had Peggy Delaney Way named, with a mural to go with it, right in the heart of the beach in Toronto, just south of Queen and Lee. We had 4 other laneways named, so a total of a stretch of 5. We call it the Dublin Stretch, because something that goes through the beach community every year is called Bloomsday, and it's a pilgrimage in honor of James Joyce and his masterpiece from 1922, which was Ulysses. So we had Stephen's Green Way. Stephen's Green is a famous park in Dublin. Liffey Way, the River Liffey in Dublin. So Liffey Way is there. Sandy Cove Way, which is a suburb of Dublin, and Bloomsday Way, and Bloomsday for the event celebrating Joyce. And those other areas the lanes are named after would be significant to Ulysses from James Joyce, but also to Dublin. So it was great. So it was a nice little, and there's only the 5 lanes there, and then you've got Kew Gardens, the park, and then a church at the end. So it ends there with the 5 lanes, but it's all in honor of it was all a Peggy Delaney Way initiative. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That was beautiful. Cassandra, do you have anything else you'd like to ask Rory?
No, because the new documentary that you were talking about with your mother kind of answered my other question. Because I was going to say, unless you have more projects maybe that you're working on, because I was just thinking the upcoming new projects and documentaries that are coming up for you.
Yeah, and I should say too, I mean, given what Mom did for the community, what's really interesting, and I think this is what Chantel was leading at initially to Cassandra, is that Mom, so my lineage as far as broadcasting and being in the media goes back through the family tree. So Mom was one of the first female news presenters on the radio in Ireland in the 1940s. And as a matter of fact, I still have a couple of the sheets where she would present, and it's all typed out, talk about the programs coming up next. And so I still have those as part of the stack of things that I went through during lockdown, and assembled 5 different photo albums and scrapbooks and all sorts of things. But Mom's dad, so my grandfather, was at the very start of, I guess, broadcasting per se, when he was a telegraph operator in the Merchant Marine and operating the Marconi device, right? The wireless, which was, preceding the radio. And there he was on the high seas of the North Atlantic the last couple of years of World War I. And he lied about his age that you heard so much about in previous wars, so that, you know, kids could sign up and be part of what was going on. But instead of him being 18, he was only 16. And I found this out while doing some family archival investigating and going through the family tree. But he was one of the fastest telegraph operators with the Merchant Marine. And then Mom was on the air as one of the first 2 female news presenters on Radio Erin, which is RTE now, Radio Television Erin. And then I sort of kept the lineage tradition going when I got into radio and TV. So that's sort of cool. Who knows where my kids will go? But
I think it's so cool about your grandfather. It's like, start them young and they'll get fast.
Yeah.
They'll be the fastest ones out there. Although they didn't know he was that young. That's crazy. I can't imagine. My son's 13, and I can't imagine in 3 years him being like, you know what? I'm going to go off and fight that war.
Yeah.
There's no way. Absolutely no way he could be that ambitious.
Yeah, and I don't think none of them knew, right? There's a sense of glory and honor and pride to sign up, but I think they got a rude awakening when, you know, especially in World War I, when they found themselves in trenches and things like that. That was a bitter reality of what that conflict was all about. But here he was, you know, just you know, going back and forth between Ireland, England, and the U.S. I mean, I've got his logbook where he's got stamps from New York, Philadelphia, Liverpool, Belfast. It was it's a great keepsake and obviously an heirloom to hand down.
That's fantastic. Wow. Rory, if people are looking for you and want to see your works and what you're working on and everything like that, how can they follow you or follow your media?
Absolutely. I'm fairly prolific on social media between Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. My website is image.biz, and it's spelled imedge.biz. And what I've done since radio and TV, for the most part, because I've been out of that for 20 years, but I started up my own business and got into voiceover, and I've got my own studio, and that's really what I've been doing for the last couple of decades, and that's what my website will showcase. So it's TV commercials, radio commercials, maybe movie trailers, e-learning, medical and pharma launches, anything that requires voiceover is pretty much what has been the bread and butter of my career for the past 20 years. And still dabbling in the odd movie role and commercial and whatever pays the bills. You know the deal, Chantel.
I do. I definitely do. Okay, well, I think that's all the time that we have for today. So thank you again so much for joining us. It's a huge honor to have you here.
Oh, well, you're great. You're both very good. And thank you for having me. And look, all the best with your podcast. And hope to talk to you again soon, Chantel and Cassandra.
Thank you so much, Rory. Have a great day.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.